Alright guys, I want to welcome you back to another Thursday night fly tying. We're here at Caravel Craft Brewery. My name's Tim Hepworth. We're here with Fly Fishing Bow River. We just want to go through a few things, kind of let you know where we're headed for the next couple weeks and you know what this tying night's going to look like for the next little while as well, as far as who's going to be here and doing some tying for us. We're actually headed away on our Oman trip, the crew at Fly Fishing Bow River. So here we have Dana and Troy and me, and then we have one other guy going as well. So we're going to be away for a couple weeks. We're not going to be back until February 21st. We're at Jared over there in the corner. Hey, Jared. He's going to be tying a pike fly for us. So he's going to be next up. And that will be again on February 21st. Okay, guys, so that's going to be the first time we're back. Kind of stay tuned to, you know, if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, we'll kind of keep you up to date on what's going on in the trip. We're really looking forward to the opportunity. We're going to miss being here, but not that much. We're going to be happier to be there, to be completely honest with you. We would like to give a little shout out to our sponsors though. We actually had a lot of people who came on board for this trip. It started out, we weren't sure the direction we were going to go with it, but it turned out pretty amazing. So our headline sponsor is Vision Fly Fishing. It's a European brand. A lot of people haven't heard of them, but if you haven't, I would tell you to kind of look into them and see what they're about. They've come on in a major way and are really making this trip happen for us. So we're thankful for that. We also have Scientific Anglers. They came on with lines for us. Most people are familiar with them. There's also a pretty awesome shoe company called Soft Science. They make everything from boating shoes to wading boots, kind of a huge range of casual wear as well. So they came on and they're providing us with all the footwear we need. Also a huge one for us, because this is a film that we're going there to shoot, potentially coming back for IF4 next year. Aquatech, they came on board and are supplying us with some camera gear as well as underwater housing, which is obviously very necessary for what we're going to do. So that's pretty great of them. Cliff Fly Boxes as well are providing all their nice bright yellow boxes for us. We also had Smith Sunglasses came on board, so they provided eyewear for us. The big one for us is Nukata, or I'm going to butcher it, but Nukata Lodge. So a friend of Dana's, he's guided him up here. He's the one who initially invited us over there. That's where he's from. He runs a fishing charter there. So we're going over there to kind of test out what the fishery is like and to see if we can do it on fly rods. They're conventional gear fishermen, so we're going to their lodge to kind of see if they can maybe pave a way to have fly fishermen go there and do what we're hoping to do as well. And then Rainey's Flies came on board as well. So all the hundreds of hours I spent tying flies for the last 3 months was character building, what can I say? But we're really thankful for all those people coming on board. As you know, IF4 was here, I believe it was last week or the week before here in Calgary. Fly Fishing Bow River is going to host it in Red Deer, so we're going to do another viewing there. That's going to be in March. We haven't set a firm date yet. So any of you who are watching online, we are going to do that. We'll get back to you with a date as soon as we have one secured, but we are going to do that. Again, this month that we're doing salt here, we had some sponsors, people who donated money, which we're really thankful for. So Rob Merkley, he's been here a few times. He's from Red Deer as well. He donated money for it, as well as Vaughn Baldwin. Outside of building this killer desk for us, he also donated some money. So we're thankful for that. That just allows us to keep it free for you guys every week and kind of keep us rolling. What was I going to say? I think that's good for now. We're going to get rolling. Like I said before, we're going to start with the Deceiver. So today we're going to be tying a couple of pretty simple patterns, but we're going to take a few new techniques kind of on board. So we did ask if you had any to bring some UV resin. If you don't, that's okay. We got lots. We can pass them around and kind of help teach you a few techniques with it. We're first going to do it with placing eyes on a Deceiver, and then we're going to be making this Needlefish. And we're going to be using it to kind of build the beak on it as well as setting eyes in it. So just kind of understanding a little bit how to use a few different materials. This will be not the first time that we've used bucktail, but this is a little bit more of a flat wing style fly, so it's just a different way of learning to use the material. And then we're using some SF blend, which is a pretty cool bait fish material that we can do lots with. So we're going to show you how to kind of work with that the best we can as well. All right, guys. Yeah, let's get started. So why don't we go ahead and open our package for our Lefty's Deceiver. Go ahead and get your hook placed in your vise. For thread, you can either, so the color that we're going to do is we're going to do a chartreuse over white. So You can do either a chartreuse thread or a white is fine. Really, the color of that isn't super crucial because we're going to be covering the majority of it up with the eyes as well as the UV resin. So as you can see here, it doesn't really play a huge role in what that looks like at the end. So it's all right to use whatever you have. All right, so we're just going to go ahead, start our thread. We're going to run our thread back to about where the barb is on your hook. So just nice touch and wraps all the way back. Just want to cover up that hook, laying a nice layer down that we're going to kind of work back up off of. So just make sure that you don't go so far that you're headed down the hook end, sorry. So this fly is it's a really interesting pattern. We don't use it a ton. It doesn't seem like sometimes. Like it could be so versatile for trout, for pike, tying them even for Oman. We tied a whole bunch of them that are significantly larger than this, all the way up to 6/0, 8/0 hooks. Very versatile fly though, has a lot of movement in the water, both with the saddle hackle and the pairing with the bucktail. So really versatile fly. It's just one that we kind of forget about sometimes. We get lost in lots of more new agey looking streamers, but it's a really good one to work with. We're gonna go ahead and grab our saddle hackle. So you should have, I believe you're gonna have enough for 2 flies. So you probably have 4, so we're gonna take 2 of them. So this is just a saddle hackle, guys. You can, this is a little bit longer one. You can get them shorter. So yours are actually better for this fly because you actually have some fluff on there, and sometimes we're going to use that fluff in the fly to kind of create a little bit bigger of a profile. The ones I'm using are a little bit longer style. So what I want you to do is I want you to take those 2 of those feathers. I'm going to get you to put them, sorry, one second here. So they have a natural curve to them. They want to go one way or the other. So what I want you to do is when you're pairing these 2, bring the tips so that they align, but we want them so they're both splayed out in opposite directions. Yeah. And that's how we're going to tie them up. So then slide your fingers down the feathers so we make sure that those tips are aligned. Okay? So again, mine look a little different than yours. What we want to do then, guys, is bring it down to the hook and I use my fingers to splay them a little bit. And I want to kind of keep one on one side of the hook and one on the other. And how we're going to measure for length is we're going to go, if we take 1 full length on there of the hook shank, we're actually just going to double it. Okay, so we want 2 lengths of the hook, and then we're going to set it back at the bend. Okay, so again, just measuring is basically 2 lengths of the hook behind. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to tie in, just because mine are a little thinner than yours, I'm going to tie 4 in just so they're a little more visible.
Do you want to split them back, like sort of back brush?
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, no. So for you guys, you're going to have a little bit of that nice fluffy, almost marabou part of the feather kind of involved in the back end of your fly. For me, I don't have all these feathers, but you don't want to wrap them right down on top of that because that fluff gives a little bit of more profile at the back of the fly. So when we're winding up, there's a couple of options. I could just cut here. I could just cut off those feathers. I actually want to wind up. I'm going to leave myself probably an 1/8 of an inch behind the eye. But what this does is it means that we're going to have a nice level area on the hook shank to then wrap our flash up, okay? So I'm just going to leave myself a little bit of room, cut those feathers off, and wind down. That just gives me a nice, hey guys, just gonna leave us a nice even layer all the way back. And then just clean up any mess that you might have. That looks good, guys. Okay, so in your materials there, you're going to have some a little bit of flash as well. You can really use any type. The original pattern called for crystal flash, but I think what we gave you is a little bit different flash. That's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to take the strands that you have. How many strands of it do you have, you know? 6-ish. So what I want you to do is at least grab two full length ones. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna line up those ends. Okay, so you guys got your flash in your hands. What we're gonna do, guys, like we did a couple weeks ago when we tied this stuff in, I like to go ahead, wrap it around my thread, even it up so I know that those ends are equal in length. They're pretty close. We can trim it after. I'm gonna set it on top of the hook, and I'm gonna take a couple wraps back to secure it, and then I like to take them, separate them so I have 2 on either side, and I'm just gonna hold them apart. So if you look at it like so, all I've done is splayed them. I'm holding 1 on either side of those hackle feathers, and then I'm just gonna wind my thread back to on top of those feathers so they stay one side on the other, okay? And then you can just trim them to basically the exact length of the saddle hackle. We'll just hang tight a second so we can get a little caught up. So guys, something else we want to let you know about. I know it's a little early to be thinking about it already, but trips for the summer. If you're interested in a float trip and you want us to take you along, whether that's on the Bow River or whether we take you down for a walk and wade in the mountains, or really any custom trip that you would like, discuss with us. But things are actually starting to book up, so you're not going to just have any option that you want going forward. So we just want to, if you're interested in it, we just like you to get a hold of us and get booked in so that we can make sure that you get the dates you want, the kind of the time of year that you want. People are kind of getting a little antsy, I think, to get fishing, so they're starting to book, which is good for us, but just to let you know, so you can, if you're interested, get on board with that. Okay. So we're just going to tie in those, just for you, just tie in your saddle hack. Did you kind of see what we did to start with? Okay. So yeah, we're just tying in that saddle in the back end, and we're just putting a piece of flash on either side. So you should have a few strands. We're just going to go 2 on either side. Bring it back. All right. Now you're going to have a little piece of, this color here is a little bit different, but you should have some diamond braid in there. So we're going to tie that in right at the very back, and we don't want to take a big chunk of it and tie it in. We want to just tie a little piece of it so it doesn't make a big lump when we're wrapping it forward. I'm going to use crystal flash, doing the exact same thing you guys are, just tying with a few different strands. So what we want to do is we want to take that and tie it in just right at the back end there by those hackle feathers. Just try not to create too big of a bump on top of that hook shank.
Sorry, what I missed that one bit there?
So you have some diamond braid there, so it looks like, yep. So just tie it in right at the very back, just trying not to, if you tie too big a piece in, then just trim the edge just so that it doesn't create a big bump on the back of your hook. Yeah, you're going to use the whole thing, yeah. So then go ahead, after you've tied that in, advance your thread forward. And we're going to leave ourselves, again, about 1/8 of an inch behind the eye. So we want a little bit of space, because as you can see on this one, once we tie in our bucktail, we're going to have room for those eyes. So we can manipulate that with our thread once we get there, but we're going to leave a little bit of space. We're not going to wrap your diamond braid all the way up to the eye of the hook, okay? So then what we're going to do is we're going to take that diamond braid, we're going to do touching wraps so that we cover up all of our thread and just advance it forward. Just make sure you're getting good coverage all the way up. You really could use a lot of different materials here, guys. Diamond braid is one of the easier ones just because it covers a lot of, it's a lot bigger in diameter, so it covers a lot more quickly. But just what I did here with just crystal flash, I just took like 10 strands and did basically the same thing. Lots of different materials we could use for it. And then we're just going to do a securing wrap in front, behind, and you can trim off your excess.
Sorry, Tim, we can catch up again.
Yeah, that's all right. Just blabber, blabber, blabber over there.
No, that's okay.
Cluck,
So
cluck,
the
cluck.
diamond braid all the way forward,
Yeah,
behind the
wrap
eye?
the diamond braid forward, and we're gonna just leave a little bit of space behind the eye. So advance your thread all the way forward first case. Yeah, to just leaving about, if you look up there, about 1/8 of an inch. If it's up there, yeah. Okay. So now we get to work with our bucktail. So you guys should have a chunk of chartreuse and a chunk of white. So we're going to use, obviously, because we have enough for 2 flies, we'll just use half of what you have there. So do your best to kind of split it. If you were working off of a full tail, we're going to find this about in the middle. So bucktail has interesting properties. The lower fibers down here are almost fluffier. They're more hollow. They have more air in them. So when we wrap on them and cinch tight, they flare really nice. So that's good for certain situations, but not good for everything. And if we were to take stuff from up the top, it's very, very dense. If you were to cinch as hard as you could, it probably wouldn't manipulate it at all. It's just gonna lay flat, and there's good instances to use that as well. But we kind of want a little bit of the best of both worlds. So I'm gonna take my fibers the hair from right around the middle of the tail. And those are gonna splay for me slightly, but not so much that we don't want the fly to just boom all the way up. We want a more sleek profile at the end that looks like this. So working with this bucktail, once you've cut it, it's got a little bit of under hair in it that we need to pull out. So this is too big a clump. But if I go ahead and I grab the tips of the bucktail, you see all these fibers start to come loose, and those are shorter fibers that are okay to use, but we might as well get them out of there if we have enough in our hands anyways. So I'm gonna pull some of those out. And bucktail is one of those things that's actually pretty easy to realign the butts if you need to. You can set them in your hand and just kind of bump them, and they're gonna go right back to where you need them. Okay, so once you kind of got that cleaned out pretty good, it's kind of it's one of those things you just get used to holding bucktail, how you manipulate it. You need to be strategic about it. You have to keep pressure on it all the time. If you let off pressure, then your tips or your butts are gonna not be aligned anymore. And that's okay, you can trim them back and be straight again, but just kind of get used to holding them, being able to switch hands with them. Let's let you guys get caught up on that. So one good thing about this bucktail is it holds profile really well in the water. So once it's in there, it's going to give us a nice even profile on this fly. We're going to have movement out of the hackle feathers in the back, but that just holds a profile. So water is going to move over top of the hair, and it's going to really move a lot, but it's also going to hold that larger profile up. So when we think about the length that we want to put on here, if we look, we want to come back about halfway into our hackle feathers. So if we left our hackle feathers really long, then we're going to need to leave our bucktail a little bit longer, and vice versa. We don't want to be super short, because then it's not going to carry a nice even profile through the fly. So we want to try to come about halfway back through there. And so if you look here, I've gauged it off the eye of the hook. I'm going to switch hands so I know where I want to make my cut, and I'm going to cut at a little bit of a 45 back towards my finger. So what I'm left with is like this, and this is very similar to the cut that we made when we did our Clouser minnow. And same reason, it's for tying in purposes, okay? But what I need is I only want this color of bucktail is only gonna remain on the top half of the hook. So we need to control it with our fingertips. So I'm pinching on the hook and pinching on the hair at the same time. So I'm gonna go and take a collecting wrap, take a couple more. I can kind of situate, make sure. So if I were to let go of that, it would probably want to spin on the hook a little bit, but I'm pinching it right there. So now I can take a few more wraps, wrap up to the eye, and you can see how that makes a nice tapered dome-shaped head, because I made that little bit of a cut at a 45. And now if you look at this, it's not quite around halfway on both sides, but all I do is I take my thumb, I brace my finger on the eye of the hook, and I'm just gonna manipulate it around the edge of the hook a little bit. And you can look at it. If it's too much, you can grab it and pull it back up to the top. But right about there, like you see, is what we want to see out of it. We want to see that the hair is about halfway around. Just like so. And we're basically just going to reciprocate that. We're going to do the same thing with our white bucktail. So again, I'm going to go in and grab about half of the fiber that you have there. If any of you guys at home have any questions for us, don't hesitate to ask. Dana will let me know. Same thing for you guys here. If you have questions or you need me to go a little slower, just let me know and we'll slow down, back up and talk about it. So again, same thing, we're going to clean out the underhair we don't want. You just want to make sure that you have pretty close to the same amount of fiber or the same amount of hair that you used on top as the bottom. So if you notice that you have too much, just pull a little bit of it out just to make sure it matches pretty good. Probably have a little too much. And now all we're going to do is we're going to, well, if you don't have a rotating vise, you're going to need to take your hook out and flip it upside down. And if you do, just rotate your vise so the hook point is up. And once we do that, we're going to, again, gauge the length that we want to. And this is a little easier this time. We can set it right on top of the chartreuse so we know exactly how long that was. Switch hands, make our cut. And then we're just going to follow through by tying it in the same way. So when we tie on the bottom side of the hook, if you watch me here quickly, as I go to place this bucktail down, I'm going to make sure that half of it goes on one side of the hook and half of it's going to go on the other. And I can just manipulate that down a little bit. Switch hands so I can make my tie-in. And if you crowd the eye a little bit like I just did, it's okay, we can trim that up after. And again, you can see I got too much on one side and not enough on the other, so all I'm going to do is manipulate that again with my thumb and turn it around the hook. And take a few more securing wraps. And I'm going to cheat and use my cautery tool and clean this up. I know, it's cheating. Smoke signals. It is fun and it's a great tool, but when you touch your thread and your thread falls off, it's also a pain in the butt. Oh, and I've done that way too many times. All right. It's actually, once you kind of get the hang of it, guys, it's actually very easy to manipulate bucktail so you can kind of get it around the hook, where you want it. This is about perfect. So we have it to where we can still see, in my case, the flash that's underneath it. We can still see it coming through the bucktail a little bit. It kind of gives almost like a midline flash on the bait fish. And once we get that tied in, guys, and we're happy with it, we're just gonna whip finish it right there. So make sure that before you whip finish, just make sure you got a nice cone-shaped head, so we want it to kind of taper down to the eye. And then we're gonna go ahead and do a couple 3 or 4 turn whip finishes. Oh yeah, will do, thank you. So like I said, guys, this fly up to now is very, very simple. And it's not that the putting the eyes on and stuff is tough, but up to here is very simple. It's a super effective fly. It's probably actually, I've tied some ridiculous pike flies that should do a lot better than they do and they don't. And this one produces. Same thing with a clouser. Really simple, but just a really effective pattern. It's one to not forget about for sure, even for trout. Once we got that tied in, we're gonna, you guys have some eyes that we gave you in there as well. Are they in the other package? Okay. You should have a couple sets of eyes in there. They might be in your other package though, yeah.
Can I put the eyes on one side?
No, this is not a halibut. We're not going round two on that. Yeah, the key is crowd the head.
You're targeting halibut with a halibut.
For the halibut. It looks really good, guys.
Hey, there's only 4.
Is there only 4? Okay, we'll grab you some more.
There's 2 packages. I don't need to.
Want me to try and go
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of these
I don't know why they. This must have been Dana's packages. You guys are short a little bit of eyes, but don't worry, we'll grab you some more.
Glue these on?
Yeah, so
flies pretty good. You might be scared.
how we're gonna put these on, guys, is I'm gonna show you the way that I prefer to do it, and that's why we kind of talked about using, over the last few weeks, we've been kind of showing you a little bit about UV resins and what we like about them, what we don't like about them. I like my solar res. That's just me. I do have Loon. I use a lot of it too. I just like the way this finishes a little nicer. So I'm going to use that. But I've done a lot of different ways. What I used to do is I used to use super glue to actually put the eyes on. But if you've ever used super glue before and you've tried it and you ever touched the dome of the eye after you have super glue on your fingers, the eye's done. Like, your fingerprint is now on it and you might as well throw it away. So the system that I really like is I use the same, so this stuff is the thin hard formula. I put a little dot of it on one side of the eye. I stick my eye on, I hit it with my torch so it sits. I haven't totally secured it, that's just to get it on there. I flip sides, I do the same thing on the other, and then I'll show you how I'm gonna build my head after that. I just find that's a really nice way to do it. If you get a little bit of the UV on top of the dome of the eye, it doesn't really affect it, just harden it and it's still clear. So I found that that's the way that I like to do it, but to each his own. So if you guys don't have some UV resin, I have some more here we can pass around. And we can pass around a torch. There's probably a few torches sitting around too. It's all right. It's all right. So pass it around as needed, guys. There's just a couple of different formulas if you don't have any. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through it pretty quick, kind of show you how I do it, and then we can help you guys, and you can pass some stuff around and kind of work on it. So color of eye really doesn't matter. A trick that I was taught from a buddy is take both the eyes off the paper, stick them on the back of your hand, because then you're not, once you got glue on and then you're looking all over your table trying to find those eyes. I just stick them on the back of my hand, that's where I know where they are. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back a little ways, so I'm just sort of on the edge of where the bucktail starts to flare. That's where I'm hoping to set my eye. So I'm just putting one little dot there. I'm gonna take my first eye, I'm gonna set it on there. And the nice thing about the UV is once I set it on there, I can still manipulate it. It hasn't hardened until I choose to harden it. So this is pretty much where I want it. So all I'm gonna do is touch it with a torch real quick. Now it's not gonna go anywhere on me. So as you see there, you're trying to basically split the fly in half on the eye. So you want about as much below the fly of the eye as above. And I'll put a dot on the other side and I'm gonna do the same thing there. And once you have the second one on, guys, you really wanna try to match them so that they're at the same angle, because you could tip, if the eyes are sitting on the fly like this, they could be tipped like this. If one's tipped like this, match it with the other. It's actually gonna swim pretty cool for you. But if it's straight up and down, try to match the other one so it's straight up and down as well. Just for the appeal of it, it looks better, but if you went like this, they'd probably swim way better. You'd probably do this, but aesthetically pleasing goes a long ways.
Tim, my fly is a little beefy.
Okay.
Do you have some larger eyes?
I don't.
Because I know if I try to split the difference, I guess it's not.
It's fine. Just center it then. That's a good question though. That question, he said, my fly's a little beefy, and now how do I split my eye over my fly? And it doesn't matter, guys. The size of the eye is more pertaining to the overall size of the fly. The size that you guys have there is a pretty good rough guess on what the actual size of eye would be. It's not an exact science. Just work with it the best you can. Okay, so once I got both of those eyes on there, all I'm gonna do is I wanna fill that space between the eyes on top and on the bottom. So this isn't perfect either. I'm gonna put a little dollop in between the eyes, and then I can just kind of touch it and bring it forward to the eye. It's just a process of put a little on, harden it, put a little on, harden it, just so that you kind of get the proper buildup that you want. So the head looks pretty even when you're finished. I'm going, yes. So being careful not to fill the eye of the hook, just covering my hook threads. So I normally I'll put a dab right between the eyes, and then I'll just use the tip to kind of just bring it back to the edge like that. Like I said, it's kind of like a build-up process, so that flattened out inside those eyes. So I'll torch it, and then I'll do it again. And then I'll torch it again. So guys, if you look at it there, all I've done is filled that gap. My eyes actually look pretty even until you look at them from the bottom, but that's all right. Does anybody else need some more resin? So, what's that, sir? This is it's a really good technique, guys. I'll be honest with you, I didn't use it a ton until I started tying for this trip. And all I could think of was, I don't want to lose eyes on all these flies I'm tying. Like, we get there and all of a sudden the eyes fall off after the first fish, then what? So a lot of the heads on them, whether it's, a flash blend minnow that looks like this, still at the front of it, just touching it with that UV resin, securing those eyes at least in the front so that there's less to grab onto and for them to come off. And this stuff isn't bulletproof. Those eyes could still come off if they had teeth on them, but normal wear and tear, those aren't gonna come off, okay? Any questions on that fly, guys? Any of the techniques we went through? There is actually a really couple of cool variations you can do on this fly. I really like to take a different color. I'll show you here. Maybe I'll show you. What's that? I don't blame him. It's pretty sultry. I'm also very humble. I appreciate it. Yeah, you got to sometimes. I don't know what I do with that. Anyways, if you have a nice cape, I like to take a couple of thin, basically it's a saddle, but it's a little thinner at the tips. And so you just pull it off of a nice cape. I like to put one bar back, and it just makes it look like there's bars on the top of its back. So I just do one down the back on each side. And that's just a kind of a nice variation to finish that fly. Again, you can vary the number of hackle you use off the back as well. There's just a lot of ways you can vary this fly up and come out with some pretty cool results. Yeah, sure, I'll show. Thank you. I had one, I know I brought one, I just don't know what I did with it. It has me concerned because it's not a cheap cape. I don't know. So this is, I'll just show you what this would look like with the cape. So for instance, this is a half neck grizzly cape. So on a cape you have feathers of various plumage, thickness. Some look more like schlappen, some look more like hackle, all the way down to these guys. So these guys are at the end, if you can envision this. Taking one on either side, tying it on top of the edge. All it does is gives the top of the back and it looks like it's barred. And we could do one on either side on the top of its back. That's a really nice variation just to add some, you know, a little bit of depth to the fly. Allows it to look like a little bit different pattern than it would just straight colors. And that probably doesn't mean anything to a fish, but it means something to us, so. Pretty counts for something. Okay guys, that is our Lefty's Deceiver. How'd it go?
Well, I had some help.
Well, that's good. Help is good.
Little rescue process.
That's all right. Any questions? We're good?
Yeah,
How's Casey doing?
look at that.
Oh man,
It speaks,
look at this.
Right? It's beefy, but I like it.
I like it.
You're not.
I just stroked
You're
this fly.
not-
And
You're not supposed to. Do
why
that.
why is your fly losing hair?
There might not be enough resin.
We're just gonna let. Don't touch it. That's a shelf fly. We'll put that one on the shelf.
I need to add a few more.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's staying on there, and not falling off. Being that I can touch it and it falls off. I don't know. Anyways, I want to give. So one really cool thing about this trip that we've been going on is a lot of people want to feel some investment in some way and they don't really know how they can do it. And we've had a lot of people reach out and say they want to tie flies for us. Like, hey, take a handful of my flies. I want you to go there and catch them on them. This is just another one. This guy's name is Jeff Thompson, at Jeff_PickZ on Instagram. Just tied us a whole bunch of pretty killer flies. So we want to do a little shout out to him. Thank you for getting them to us before we go. And we'll definitely huck them at something. So thanks to him. Okay guys, that is our Lefty's Deceiver. Go ahead and pop that out of the vise. So we're gonna use the same size hook on the next one. So for you guys at home, or you guys here as well, something that's kind of cool about, you know, the trip that we're doing is in essence, it's like a destination trip. So it's like a hosted trip. That's what we kind of hope to do in the future, maybe going back there, but something that Fly Fishing Bow River actually does here, and it doesn't pertain as much to you who live here already, but we do all-inclusive trips. So if you want to book a trip and you're from somewhere in the States, you give us a call. We can arrange everything from your lodging, food, everything that you would need out of a however many day trip you want to do. All trips are customizable to the length of stay and where you want to fish. So it doesn't mean you have to be only on the Bow River. You could be split it up with walking wades or floats or whatever you want. So again, we do those all-inclusives as well. So hit us up if that's something that interests you. We can set up kind of your dream trip. Okay, next hook in the vise. So guys, this is a needlefish. So a pretty common, of varying sizes, fish that we would find in salt water. I think here, if we were to look at this fly, we would be like, man, I need a stinger in there. I need something behind that's gonna get short striked all day. Something that's a little different about saltwater is the way that fish attack flies is not the same as a trout does. It's not gonna be a brown trout that's short striking this fly, chasing it because it's aggressive. It's coming at it to eat it, and it's gonna make sure that it eats it normally by the head or by the center of mass. So this fly, we tied off right off the back bend of the hook, and this is basically to give us that nice needle shape to the nose. All we're gonna use is SF blend. We're gonna tie in one color on top, one color on the bottom. Very, very simple. You're gonna see how simple it is to actually work with this material. And then we're gonna, again, work with some more of our UV resin. And what you see that I did here is I just built up a little bit of a head. I changed color of threads at the end just to make a blue nose, but it doesn't really matter. White or whatever you have is gonna be fine. Even red would be okay. Could look like it's a wounded baitfish or whatever. So whatever you have for color is fine. So this is what we're gonna do. This is the fly we're gonna tie. So go ahead and grab your materials. Again, you have enough for 2. So we're gonna go dark over light. So I believe you have like almost a mint or green color. So we're gonna tie that in on top, and that's gonna be over top of the lighter white color. So trying to keep it as aligned as possible. So that's one of the tough things about actually working with this material. So this is how it comes. It comes in these packages. So if you were to pull this all out of the package and then try to get it all back in there, it doesn't normally go very well. You're gonna lose quite a bit of fiber. What I found to work best for me is I leave it in here. I grab the amount that I want and I try to pinch down beside it in the package so that I'm not gonna pull out a bunch of half-length pieces as well. It's not a super easy material to get out of a package, but once you're working with it, it's pretty simple, okay? So out of that mint green color you have, I want you to take half of it. So split it in half, and I'll grab a chunk of this stuff. And a little goes a long ways in these with this material. Once it gets wet and it gets, so here it looks like it's just a wisp, but as soon as I pull it tight, it changes quite a bit. So once you got half of that, set it aside. Let's go ahead and start our thread on our on our hook. So I want you to start right behind the eye, and we're gonna lay a nice thread layer all the way back. Just touching wraps. And we're gonna go right to the bend of the hook. So again, not on the bend down the hook, just right on top. So that's gonna be about where the barb is again. All right, once you're back there, again, like our bucktail, we're just trying to keep control of this material. So at all times, just make sure you keep a tight finger on it. Pinch it between your fingers so it's not going anywhere. If there's any loose fibers, you can pull it out. Now what we want to do is we want to split this in half, okay? So if I'm pinching here, I kind of fold it down. It's about half, not quite. I'm gonna again pull it down. So I'm pinching in the middle and I'm just kind of gauging the length. So I want it to be about even on either side. So once I found that midpoint, I'm going to take that midpoint and I'm going to tie it in on top of the hook, okay? So, but before I do that, we want to create a bit of a taper to this fly. So taper meaning it's thicker, goes to thinner by the end. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few of these fibers at the end, and while pinching up here still, keeping control, I'm just going to pull a few of them a little bit longer. So it creates a little bit of a taper. Not much, I didn't change it a ton, but creates a little taper. Go ahead again. So now if I go back and I'm like, well, that doesn't look halfway anymore, that's intentional. I want that to be a little bit longer taper in the bottom. So now holding that point that I was on before, I can switch hands, pinch it. I'm gonna do a collecting wrap up on top.
Sorry, Tim, which way was the longer end going to?
Going to the back. So we're tying it into the back. Yeah, so switch your hands.
How long again?
Sorry? So we're gonna measure it in half, and then we're gonna pull out a few fibers a little bit farther to taper it, and then tie it in where your fingers are pinching. So if you were to think about it like this is wider to thinner. So we're tapering it out the back end, and this piece is gonna do the same when we wrap it forward and come back down, okay? But it's important that this color stays on top of the hook, so we don't want any of the fibers to slip around the hook bend. So it just, again, keeping control of it so it doesn't go anywhere, okay? It can be a little bit tricky at first, but it is a pretty smooth material to work with. So once we tie that in on top, what I'm gonna do is I wanna hold on to the material with one hand so I know it's staying on top of the hook, and I'm gonna do some open wraps up the hook bend. So what this is gonna do for me is it's actually gonna create more of a taper. So when I fold it back over, the length has changed again. So I'm gonna come about this far, so I've come about 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm gonna fold those fibers back, again making sure they stay on top of the hook by a good pinch. Wrap over top of them and head back into where I initially tied in, and that's where I'm gonna stop my thread. That make sense?
So what I've done is I tied it, I kept going forward until when I pulled it back.
Again, these can be tied in a various various range of hook sizes, going all the way up again to even up to a 6/0, 8/0. You're just gonna taper it so it's a much longer fly at that point. So I did create a bit of a bump, and we're gonna do the exact same thing on the bottom, so it'll make that bump even bigger. We'll taper that out with some thread before we, yeah, don't cut it, sorry, that's okay. So what I did is I took it. Did he tell you to cut it? We're gonna fold it back, pinching it on top of the hook still. We're gonna, so pinch it on top of the hook, and we're gonna wrap back to our initial tie-in point. So we want both pieces of that headed back down the hook, down the fly. So guys, as I'm sure you can imagine, there is a ton of ways to work with this stuff. We can tie a lot of really cool baitfish patterns with it. The tie-in that we just did, there's flies, a lot of flies, like for instance, this one. This fly was tied entirely on top of the hook, but was tied with multiple layers of doing exactly what we just did. And all this does is create a much bigger profiled baitfish when I pull that back versus pulling this back. It's a thin needlefish. But it's a really good principle to learn. We tie forward a ways, fold it back, come back. Now we would set fiber in front of it, do the same thing, going back and forth, back and forth. Eventually we can build up a pretty cool fly. Okay. All right, guys, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna rotate our vise so it's upside down. And I can already tell from some, we may have overjudged on how much we put on, but that is okay. It's still gonna hold a bigger profile in the water, which is all right. Needlefish are just generally very slim, and I know it looks like there's not much material there, but it's enough. So just understanding that it's actually at the end very, very slim in profile. So if I pull it down and it's tight, imagine that's how it's moving in the water. Very, very thin. So now we need to match the same amount of white fiber as we did with that mint color you have there. Okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab that, wherever I put mine. And again, color combinations could change a lot here. Just generally speaking, when we're talking about flies, we're gonna go a dark over light is normally how we're gonna do it, no matter what your color combination is. Go with a darker color on top, lighter on the bottom. So again, I'm gonna find that midway point, and then I'm gonna keep that pinch on it. I'm gonna pull a few fibers out a little farther. This one is actually tapered really nice already, so I'm gonna leave that as so. Now a little bit trickier, and like we did with the bucktail when we tied it in on the bottom, we need to, when we lay this in, it's a little bit of a control technique, making sure that we push that hook through right in the middle of those fibers. So we want as many on one side of the hook as the other. So it just takes you getting in there a little bit, making sure that's what's happening. And now you actually have to work inside that hook bend because we're tying it in so close to it. So you really got to get your fingers in nice and close. I'm going to pinch that down there, making sure it stays on the bottom of the hook. Do a pinching or a trap wrap, and wrap forward just like I did before. But again, making sure those fibers stay on top, or on bottom in this case, but looks like they're on top. And we'll go right up to where we did with the other one. Make sure it's tied down good. And now when we flip that to fold it back, we again have to find the middle of that clump of fiber to push through the hook. And then you just grab it on either side of that hook and just pull it. So it's gonna look like it's a mess, but it's just trying to organize itself on either side of that hook. And you're just gonna stroke it until it goes back. And now we're gonna wrap back to that tying point again. So now we should have an even amount of light on the bottom as we do dark on top. And if when we pull this fiber back and we see that they're not even, or we don't like the profile that it's given us, the beauty of this stuff is we can literally just a little bit of trimming as we head back, we can taper it right back out again. Unfortunately, guys, this fly actually doesn't look very good out of the water. Until it's in the water, you're not going to get that nice slim profile that you're hoping for. I'm tying with the wrong hand? Yeah. Sorry, guys, I know that's confusing. Imagine me trying to teach somebody a whip finish with the wrong hand. I had to learn it right-handed to teach Eric. But he knows how to do it now, so it's worth it. Worth every second. Okay, guys, so once we have that tied in on the bottom and on top, I'm going to use my thread to just even out that bump. So I'm going to get kind of in front of it. I'm just going to go back and forth, moving a little bit farther forward each time until I can taper out that nose. So it looks pretty even. And continue that thread right up to the nose or the hook eye.
So you want to taper from the bump forward,
just tapering it out the best that we can. Yeah. This is my new vise and I love it because it does this. Yeah, I gotta say, guys, I've tied on quite a few vices, but this is my favorite. This is the Regal Revolution. Until we get a shape that looks something like that, a little bit more evened out. Now, like I said, what I was gonna do is I'm gonna whip finish and I'm gonna go put a blue thread on, just so I can kind of change up the color scheme. And I'm just going to go back and cover up the white thread. And that's simply just for aesthetic reasons, nothing else. So for both of these flies, guys, I was using a UTC 140. When you're working with bucktail, a lot of times it's nicer to tie with something a little heavier, like a 200 or 250, just because you can get a cinch on it. But with the LEFTY'S Deceiver, we didn't actually have to flare any hair, so it's not a big deal. You can use a lighter thread. And kind of once you're happy with that taper, you go ahead and whip finish. If you're joining us from home and you've never kind of seen our setup here, this is where we're located tonight is at Caravel Craft Brewery in Calgary. It's right in the north end of Calgary by the airport. They've been really amazing to us. They let us come and manipulate their space. As you can see, we've really just taken over half of their space and done what we want. They've been so good to us. We really appreciate all they do, and they make really good beer. So that's not a downside either. It's nice to show up and be able to have a beer while we're doing this. Or 4, drive safe home, call a tab. Sorry? Do I have one with me? No. Sorry. All right, guys, once you're happy with that taper. Are you happy with your taper there?
I need more threads.
It looks like your needlefish swallowed a grape.
You're gonna get something.
Yeah.
Gift for you guys.
How you doing? Good? Good. Again, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to answer them. I think you're making it worse now. Just go forward. Yeah, if you don't like your thread. Also, obviously, if you put on a thicker thread, it's gonna happen a lot faster than the thin thread.
That's what I think is happening. This is thick.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do from this point, guys, is we're gonna go and put our eyes on just like we did with our last fly. And we're gonna put a little bit of a coating of UV resin up the nose all the way to the hook eye again. So what I'm gonna do, I'll use the same color again. We wanna basically do the exact same thing we did on that Lefty's Deceiver to put the eyes on. We're just gonna put it right back where the material starts. You were doing so good.
Oh, it should be. You'll probably be able to level that out. I'm going to put my eyes on my grape.
Put your eyes on your grape. All right.
The joke about a baby holding an apple somewhere in there.
There's always that one kid in class, right? I'm sure that Troy won't like me to say this about this, but there's very few things I'm not an advocate to going to a fly shop to buy, but these stupid eyes is one that I don't buy at a fly shop. They're these ones here. They're I got them off Amazon, and you get like yeah, he's not fingering me right now, I promise. The fly shop owner in the back. I think you get like 500 and some eyes for like $7. It's just unreal, and they're a pretty good eye, I gotta say. But these ones I just got off Amazon. But everything else, go to Troy's Fly Shop, West River Fly Shop, and buy everything you need. But not eyes. And then what we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna again fill up that gap in between the eyes. Eric, is that a needlefish or a blowfish? It looks really nice. Just not a lot like a needlefish. Oh, what's that? Oh, thanks, bud. I take back all my mean comments. So then what I'm doing is I'm just going to build up a little layer all the way up to the nose, or the hook eye in this instance. I'm just not putting a lot of resin on the top of it. I'm just a little bit at a time, and I'm using the applicator tip to just smooth it around. So I got a nice even bottom as top. And we just want to make sure that it tapers down to that nose. So we're kind of keeping that true needlefish look. I'll hit it with our torch. And there we go. All right. How are we guys? How are we doing? We're sad to say, guys, this is going to be our last saltwater week. We just kind of wanted to do this as a lead up to us taking off. So this will be our last week doing it. But again, we want to say thanks to Rob Merkley and from Baldwin again for making donations so that this month could just be again stay free for you guys and to help us out with materials. They're really good about that. So we want to thank them for doing that. This has been a really fun month. It was really good last week to have Bob come in too and tie a couple more flies. Hope you guys enjoyed him. I've learned a ton from that guy as well. Really awesome. He runs a club up in Red Deer, fly tying club as well. It's really good. It probably won't be the last time that you see him either. Anybody else need some resin? You good? Can you make it look any better?
Oh, I already went back.
Oh, it does look more even.
Yeah, filled
Yeah.
in a little bit more on the rear.
On the rear. Yeah, where'd it go? Troy took it. Sorry, you can have it in a second. So guys, as we're not going to be here for a couple weeks, and not that that matters at all because we're not on conflicting days, but keep in mind the Cochrane Fly Tying Club, Rick here, he runs it out in Cochrane. They run on Tuesday nights. So we're not going to be here, so you can't say that you can't do too much fly tying in 1 week. So if you want to, head out and check them out. Again, on Tuesday nights. Where are you located? The Cochrane Alliance Church. So that's where they meet. What time? 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights. So go check them out. How are we doing, guys? Do we have any questions at home or here about anything we've done today with these two flies? We've learned a couple new techniques. We've learned how to play with bucktail a little bit and this funny material, this SF blend. Like I said, it's a pretty cool material. Actually, some of these if you look up here, you can see some of these ones here. These are actually tied with a brush, and it's the same material, but it's put on a piece of wire. It's really cheap, and you just get to wrap it right up the shank of the hook and tie it off.
We're going to use it again when he does pike flies too. So.
Oh, this?
Yeah, the
oh,
SF blend.
Oh, the SF blend, yeah. So we are going to, when we come back to tie pike flies on the first week, on the 21st of February when we're back, we're going to use some more SF blend for the pike flies. Really versatile, good for salt water, but really good for pike flies as well. Lots of movement in the water. I know it kind of seems like a stiff material, but once it's in the water, it really moves really nice. Holds a really good profile. Does some really fun stuff. Are we all done? We're good? Yes, absolutely. Like my eyes, or you need some eyes? What did I do with them? Oh, they're there. Oh yeah, for sure.
You have such a nice voice.
Oh, stop flattering me. Yeah, just whatever color you want. There's some in there. Ooh, good. Looks good. Oh yeah, he's helping you?
I have trouble with my fingers.
Oh, okay. That fine dexterity stuff?
No, I've had, but I had an operation on my kidney.
Oh, okay.
It left me a little bit of eyesight gone here, and these all went numb on me.
Oh.
And then I got a little bit of arthritis since. So I'm not able to do what I used to do.
Yeah.
But my friend was coming. I was really hoping.
You're the other one who's coming, yeah.
Oh, he was excited, but I don't. And his son is in the oil patch in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really?
And he's having trouble with his son or something, or communication back and forth. So I think he might have had a babysitter.
Oh, might have had to have something to do.
But he left the son in Saudi Arabia.
So you've decided to get your rod, but you're confused as to how you go about getting all the parts. Well, I've created a custom rod form on the website. It'll go specifically in detail, step by step. One where you're gonna start, last step is where you're gonna finish. So we can start with the thread wraps, the reel seat, the grips. They come in all wide different ranges. There'll be a bunch of options supplied on the website. As you go through, there'll be simple click and click, and then you'll be able to get what you want. And then down at the end, there'll be a note section for any additional things you would like to add to your rod, meaning your name, personalization, you'd like a different, you'd like every guide to be a different color, everything's possible. And I believe the easier I make this process for you, the less stressful it is. And I've realized that as going through, people don't fully understand, and that's why I'm here, and that's what Classic Custom Rods is going to supply, is communication between the both of us at the fullest to make you as comfortable as possible through this whole process.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to bring us kind of to a close for tonight. Stick around with us here. You got enough material to tie a couple more. I'm going to probably tie a couple more, so I'll hang out, help you out. If you want some more help, we can kind of go through that. Again, guys, we are going to be gone for a couple weeks. We'll be back on the 21st of February. Some are jealous, and that's okay. Again, we do want to give a thanks to those sponsors that I announced earlier. Some of you probably weren't on earlier watching. So I'm going to go through a list of sponsors again that are sponsoring this film. And we've had some questions about what this is actually looking like and what we're kind of hoping to do with it. The direction we're going with this film is that we're going to Oman, somewhere where most people haven't thought of going fly fishing before, and there is some who have, but not very many. There's a lot of fear about the Middle East and traveling there. We hope to debunk that a little bit, show that it's safe, especially that country. It's a wonderful tourist kind of location, but also offers a ton of awesome fly fishing. So we're hoping to kind of go there, shoot a film that's going to show the diversity of the species there, kind of debunk those fears, and hopefully attract more people to want to go back there. We were able to have some people come on board with us and kind of believe in us and want to support what we're doing. So Vision Fly Fishing came on board. They're one of our bigger sponsors. We're very thankful for them. They believe in us, and when you're starting out and doing something like this, it's kind of hard to, it's hard because people don't know who you are and they don't know what you're doing. So we're very thankful to have a brand like that willing to come on board and give us a chance. Also, Scientific Anglers are providing our lines for us. We're very thankful for that. Soft Sciences, that's a brand you guys should look up if you've never heard of them before. I know I hadn't until we found them. They're a great footwear company. They do a lot of boat shoes and wading shoes for fly fishing as well. We also have Smith Optics. We're very thankful for them. They came on board. They provided all the sunglasses to keep our eyes safe over there. Cliff Fly Boxes as well are providing all the boxes for our flies that we've been tying. And those flies that were provided were Rainey's flies, so they provided a huge selection for us, which is very good. We're very thankful for that. And then our lodge, Nakuta Lodge, we'll be tagging them 1,000 times. If you're paying attention to us on social media for the next couple weeks, you'll see a lot of what's there and how much that lodge is going to do for us as well. They've brought us over and are willing to host us and are going to take care of us for a couple weeks in a place that we don't feel very comfortable yet. So we're very thankful to have people there who know the area and are willing to, take care of us. So that's a little bit about what's going on for the next couple weeks. Stay tuned. We'll have lots to tell you. We'll probably do a night of sharing when we get back, a little bit of how these flies that we've been tying worked or didn't work or whatever. So anyways, guys, from us here at Fly Fishing Bow River, I'm Tim Hepworth again. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for tuning in at home, and we'll see you on the 21st.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Good job tonight. Tie some more if you like. Casey's still laughing at his fly. It's not that bad. Do you need an anchor?